We continue now at the top of Daf Samech Dalet Amud Beis in Meseches Yevamos. This is Yevamos Daf 64b. The Gemara in the previous someone said that both Avram and Sarah, so they were both tumtums. You couldn't discern whether they were male and female at the beginning of their lives. And the Gemara here is bringing a pasuk Chutzavtem vel Makeves bor Nukartem. Look at how originally the stones were hewn and how originally the pits were dug out. And Rashi over here explains Chutzavtem Nasa lo Zachros. In other words, how the male was formed in terms of Avram Avinu, and Nukartem Nasa lo Nekeves, how she was formed, talking about Sarah as a female, Kamani Karti v'Shasisi Mayim, and so therefore you see from the pasuk, and the Gemara will continue over here. Uchsiv, and the pasuk also says Habitu el Avram Avichem. The pasuk says, look at Avram your father, ve'el Sarah techolalchem, and look at Sarah. And the idea over here is look at Avram and Sarah, Sur Chutzavtem and the Bor Nukartem, how they were formed as males and females, not immediately, but only at the time that they were able to have children were they fully formed. The Gemara continues, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Avua. Rav Nachman says in the name of Rabba bar Avua, Sarah Imenu, Sarah our mother, Eilen is high, so she was Eilenist. She did not have all the signs of maturity. That's why she was not able to give birth. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Vaiti Sarai Akara, Ein Lo Volad. It says she was an Akara, she didn't have children, and it means to say Afilu Beis Vlad Ein Lo. She didn't even have physically the areas which are necessary in order to have children. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Yehuda Breder of Shmuel bar Shilas Mishmei de Rav. Rav Yehuda, the son of Rav Shmuel bar Shilas, says in the name of Rav, Lo Shanu Ella Bedoros Harishonim. This idea that's taught in the Mishnah that you wait 10 years, and if there's no children after 10 years, then you either divorce or you take another wife. That's only true in the earlier generations. Sheshnosei and Merubos, because in the earlier generations they lived a much longer time. Aval Bedoros Achronim, but in the later generations, Sheshnosei and Muatos, that they live much fewer years, they don't have lifespans that are as long. So Shtei Shanim Umechza, then you should only wait for 2.5 years. Keneged Shlosha Iburim, that is corresponds to 3 pregnancies. Rashi over here says Shlosha Iburim Chav Zayin Chadashim. It means to say 27 months limei havlad. That's 27 months in terms of the actual time. 9 times 3 is 27. It's 9 months that you carry the baby, so 3 of those. And then you have to add on a little bit. V'chodesh l'chol ibor v'ibor. You have to also add on a month for each pregnancy, and so that's why the number over here is not exactly 27 months, but it's 2.5 years, which is going to be 30 months. Limei tumah v'tara. The reason why you need the extra month is because there are days of tumah and tara that you have to have between each pregnancy. The isha misabera samach levesta, because a woman gets pregnant around the time of the vest, around the time when she's supposed to have her period, and so therefore again that's why it's going to be 2.5 years. It's going to be 30 months. And the Gemara continues, Rabba Amar Rav Nachman. Rabba says in the name of Rav Nachman, Shalosh Shanim, it's actually 3 years, not 2.5 years. Keneged Shalosh Pekidos, that corresponds to the 3 times that a woman is going to be remembered. Rashi over here says Shalosh Pekidos HaKadosh Baruch Hu Pokedo Akaras. There were 3 times that HaKadosh Baruch Hu remembered Akaras, L'shmoat Tfilosim B'Rosh Hashanah, to listen to their prayers on Rosh Hashanah, V'gozer Alei and Hayrayon, and he made a decree that they could get pregnant. As the Gemara over here continues, D'Amar Mar, because the master said B'Rosh Hashanah, that it was on Rosh Hashanah, Nifkedu Sarah, Rachel, V'Chana. Those are the 3 individuals, Sarah, Rachel, and Chana. They were remembered at that time. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabba says, Lesnu lahani klali. All of these rules are not true halach lemaisa. We actually do wait 10 years. It's not 2.5 years. It's not 3 years. And he explains as follows, Michti larasim masnisen mantokin. Who's the one who put together the Mishnah? Rebbe's the one who put together the Mishnah. V'habi made David imotshani. But it was already in the days of David that our years became less. In other words, by Rebbe's time already, people did not have long lifespans, and nevertheless, Rebbe says 10 years. That's how we understand that it's 10 years. How do we know that in the days of David HaMelech, people had normal lifespans? Dichsiv, like the pasuk says, Yemei shenoseinu bohem shivim shana. It says in the Tehillim that the lifespan is 70 years. That's the standard lifespan. That's the standard lifespan nowadays as well, and therefore that's in Tehillim. That's in the times of David HaMelech. So if Rebbe in the Mishnah wrote 10 years, we can assume that that's halacha l'maisa. And the Gemara continues, V'haishem lo zachal hibanos heimen. And we said earlier in the Gemara, we quoted a brisa. It said that maybe he did not merit to have children with her, talking about the husband. So the Gemara questions that language. Maybe she's the one that didn't merit. Why does the Brisa specifically say he, the husband, did not merit? And so the Gemara explains, when it comes to her, since women are not commanded on Pru'urvu, so lo mi'ansha, so it wouldn't make any sense to say the punishment was for her, and that's why the Brisa says it was he that did not merit. And the Gemara continues, is that really the case? But the Rabbanan said to Rabbi Abba bar Zavda, Zavda, Nesiv Itasav Olid B'ni. They said you should marry a woman, you should have children. V'yamar Lahu, and he said to them, Izakoi Havali. If I really married it, I would have had Mikamais, I would have had from my first wife. So therefore, there's no reason for me to get remarried. And so the Gemara is asking that this seems to challenge the idea that we said in the Mishnah that if a person doesn't have children after 10 years, he should take another wife. Here we have in this story over here, Rabbi Abba bar Zavda is saying that there's no point in taking another wife. And the Gemara answers, no, Hasam over there, really he was just pushing off the Rabbanan. There was another reason, there was a different reason. He didn't want to marry a second wife. And what was the reason? To Rabbi Abba bar Zavda, we mentioned this earlier, that Rav Huna's shiurim were very long, and in order to stay in the shiur, people would hold themselves back from going to the bathroom. Rabbi Abba bar Zavda was one of the students, so he was iyaker. He made that he couldn't have children because he held himself back from going to the bathroom and injured himself, and he wasn't able to have children. That's why he didn't take another wife. And similarly, the Gemara says, Rav Gidol, iyaker mipirkei de Rav Huna, Rav Gidol he also was not able to have children because of the long shiurim of Rav Huna. Rabbi Chelbo, iyaker mipirkei de Rav Huna, and also Rabbi Chelbo couldn't have children because of the long shiurim of Rav Huna. And Rav Sheishas, iyaker mipirkei de Rav Huna, and also Rav Sheishas couldn't have children because of the long shiurim of Rav Huna. And the Gemara says, Rav Acha bar Yaakov, when it came to Rav Acha bar Yaakov, achadete suskinta teluya ba'arza debei Rav, v'nofik minei kahutza yarka. So Rav Acha bar Yaakov, he also held himself back from going to the bathroom, and therefore he was afflicted with a disease called suskinta. And in order to heal himself, so he hung himself ba'arza, by the cedar. It was by the column in the study hall. He hung himself from there, and it grew out of him kahutza yarka, like some kind of leaf grew out of him, and he was healed from this affliction. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov, Rav Acha bar Yaakov says, Shisin Sabei Havina, there were 60 elders, V'kulu Yaker, Mipirkei de Rav Huna. All of these people, they all were not able to have children because of the long shiurim of Rav Huna. Everybody was affected by this. Levar me'ano, but except for myself. Again, this is the same Rav Acha bar Yaakov who healed himself by suspending himself from a column. Dekaimi ben Afshoy, because I was able to fulfill in myself, Hachachma techaya ba'aleh, that wisdom can allow the person to live. In other words, he was able to heal himself using this wisdom. And the Gemara continues, Girsha mutaras v'chulu. It says that if he divorces her, so she's allowed to marry a second husband. And so the Gemara says, Sheni in shlishi lo. It sounds like from the Mishnah she can marry a second husband, but if already she doesn't have children with a second husband, there's already a chazaka, she's not going to have children, and she should not take a third husband. And the Gemara says, Masnisin money. So who does our Mishnah follow that a chazaka is after 2 times? Rebbe, it seems to follow Rebbe. The Tanya, because we learned in a brayso, Mola harishon v'meis. Let's say you do a bris milah on the first child and he dies. Sheni v'meis, the second child, he also dies. So shlishi lo timo, so the third child you shouldn't give a bris milah. There's already a chazaka that it's dangerous to give a bris milah to these sets of brothers. Divrei Rebbe, this is the opinion of Rebbe. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says shlishi timo. No, the third one can get a bris milah. There's no chazaka after 2, but only after 3. Revi lo timo, but the fourth one is already a problem. There's no bris milah. So you see here a machlokas between Rebbe and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, and Rebbe is the one that says that a chazaka is after 2 times. And the Gemara says, V'hatanya ipcha, but don't we have a brayso that says exactly the opposite, that it's Rebbe that says that a chazaka is after 3 times, and it's Rav Shimon ben Gamliel that says it's after 2 times. And the Gemara says, Haiminayu achranisa. Which one of the 2 versions of the brayso is actually later, meaning which one is more reliable? What does Rebbe say? Does he say there's a chazaka after 2 times or after 3 times? And so the Gemara says, Tashma, come and hear the following proof. The Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Chia bar Abba said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Maisa ba'arba achoyos b'tzipore. There was a story with 4 sisters in Tzipore. Shamola Rishona v'meis, that the first sister had a child, gave a bris milah, and he died. Shnia, the second sister, also the same thing, v'meis, her child died. Shlishis, the third sister, did it, v'meis, and the child died. Reviah, so now the fourth one, Bas lifnei Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, came before Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Amar lo, he said to her, Al tamoli, don't give it a bris milah. So it seems to be that Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel was saying after 3 times is a chazaka. But the Gemara says, 1 second, it's not a proof at all. Maybe let's say the third one would have come to him. He would have said the same thing. Maybe there was a chazaka after 2. Happens to be he was only asked the question by the 4th sister. And so the Gemara says, 1 second, Imkein Maya Saduse to Rabbi Chia bar Abba. If that was the case, what's the point of the testimony of Rabbi Chia bar Abba? If he would have said the same thing, if it would have been the 3rd sister or the 4th sister, why would you testify and say, I know about this story by the 4th sister? If not to tell us something about chazaka, that it's after 3 times. But the Gemara says, no, there's a point to the story anyway. Maybe the point of the story was to say that even sisters create the chazaka. In other words, it doesn't just have to be that the baby boys that have the bris milah, they're all brothers. That's not not the only case where you have a chazaka. Even in a situation where a bunch of sisters have children, you can end up with a chazaka. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava says, Hashta da'amrit achayos mechazkos. Now that you're saying that sisters can create a chazaka, so lo yisa adam isha lo mimishpachas nichvin, a person should not marry a wife, he shouldn't take a wife from a family, let's say, of epileptics, v'lo mimishpachas mitzoroim, or not from a family of lepers. In other words, the point is, if some of the sisters have these afflictions, so then you can assume there's a chazaka, the other sisters may have that as well. And the Gemara says, Vudis chazek telasa zimni, but still there has to be a chazaka 3 times. It has to have happened to 3 family members, otherwise you don't have a chazaka. And the Gemara continues, my have Allah, so what is the final psak halacha? Do we assume a chazaka after 2 times or after 3 times? And the Gemara says, Ki yasa Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef, when Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef came, Amar, he said as follows, Uvda hava kami de Rav Yochanan bechnishta de Ma'on b'yom HaKippurim shecholios b'Shabbos. There was a story that happened with Rav Yochanan in the synagogue of Ma'on on Yom Kippur that happened to fall out on Shabbos. Umola Rishon of Ames, the first sister, had given a bris milah to her son and he died. Shni of Ames, the second sister, the same thing, gave a bris milah to her son and he died. And so now on Shabbos, that on Yom Kippur, that fell out on Shabbos, Shlishis Ba Lefanov, the third sister came in front of Rabbi Yochanan. Amar lo l'chiva muli, and he said to her, you can give the bris milah, meaning there's only a chazak after 3 times, not after 2 times. So Amar le Abaya, so Abaya said to him, he said to Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef, Chazi de kasharis isur v'sakanta. You have to make sure that what you're saying is a reliable account of what Rabbi Yochanan paskin, because otherwise you're permitting not only an isur but also a sakana. It's an isur to give the bris milah if there shouldn't be a bris milah, and it's also a sakana to give the bris milah, of course, if there shouldn't be a bris milah, because it's dangerous for the child. In any case, the Gemara says, Samachala Abaya. Abaya ended up relying on this. V'yazal nasva l'chuma brata di'isi breder of Yitzchak breder of Yehuda. So he ended up marrying Chuma, who was the daughter of Isi, who was the son of Rav Yitzchak, who was the son of Rav Yehuda, and he married her even though there may have been a chazaka problem. The nasva rachva de Pumbedisa v'shachiv, because this Chuma, she married Rachva of Pumbedisa and he died. Rav Yitzchak breder Rabba bar Barchana v'shachiv, she also married Rav Yitzchak, the son of Rabba bar Barchana, and he died. And so therefore Abaye said, I can rely on this. There's only a chazaka after 3 times, not 2. So Abaye married her as well, v'nosvahu, and he married her, v'shachab, but he ended up dying. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava says, would anyone rely on something like this the way Abaye is relying on what he heard? Not only that, Abaye himself never trusted the testimony of Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef. It was Abaye that said that Avin is reliable, he's Samcha, but Yitzchak Sumka, Yitzchak the Red, that refers to Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef, so he's actually not reliable. And why did he make such a distinction? Because Avin Yeshnu Bechazara, because Avin he returns to Eretz Yisrael. Rashi has a couple explanations over here. Yeshnu Bechazara, Choser al Talmudo, he reviews that which he learned. Lashon Acher Matzli Kal Shalaf Ne Rabbi Yochanan, or he returns to Rabbi Yochanan, he returns to Eretz Yisrael and hears him. Vim Chazar Bo Rabbi Yochanan, Misham Davar Shamar Tchila Oven v'chozer gam hubo. So Oven is going to hear if there's a retraction. Avol Rav Yitzchak eino motzei lefana, but Rav Yitzchak he's not found in front of Rabbi Yochanan often. Upa amim sheshamar davar me Rabbi Yochanan ulamachar chazer bo Rabbi Yochanan v'eino yodeh. Sometimes he hears something from Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan changes his mind. He doesn't know. And so the point is, Abaye wouldn't rely in general. He wouldn't rely on Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef. And so therefore, why is he relying on him in this case? V'yoden, furthermore, Eimer de Pligi, Linyan Mila, that whole machlokas, that story that we heard, was only about bris milah. Maybe that's where there's a machlokas. Benesuan mi Pligi, who said that there's a machlokas when it comes in terms of marrying a woman, like Abaya took a wife, that might have been dangerous. But to that the Gemara says, no, yes, the machlokas exists by marriage as well. V'atani, as we learned in a Braisa, Nisis l'rishon v'meis, l'sheni v'meis, if she married a first husband and he died, a second husband and he died, l'shlishi lo tinase divrei Rebbe. According to Rebbe, there's already a chazaka, you don't marry the third one. Rav Shimon Gamliel says no, she can marry the third one. She just can't marry the fourth one. So in any case, you see that this machlokas takes place both with regards to Mila and with regards to Nesuin, with regards to marriage. But the Gemara continues, B'shlama gabe Mila, I understand by bris Mila. Ika mishpacha de Rafi dama, vika mishpacha de Kamit dama. There are different families, they have different kinds of blood. Some have thinner blood, some have thicker blood. In other words, the point is, it makes sense that it would be hereditary. You would see if it's dangerous for some of the children, it might be dangerous for the other brothers. If it's dangerous for sons of some sisters, it might be dangerous for sons of some of the other sisters. It makes sense to say that the chazaka would apply. Ela nisu in my time, when it comes to marriage, why would we say there's no logic over here? Just because she marries one husband and he dies, therefore she's going to marry someone else and he's going to die. What's the logical connection? And the Gemara continues, Amar le Rav Mordechai le Rav Ashi. Rav Mordechai said to Rav Ashi, Hachi Amar Avime mehagrunya mishmei de Rav Huna. So says Avime mehagrunya in the name of Rav Huna. Mayon gorim. Mayon gorim means the fountain is what causes it. In other words, the act of relations is able to cause that something can happen. She can cause that something can happen to these husbands through having relations with them. Rav Ashi Amar Rav Ashi says, Mazel gorim. No, it's the person's mazel. This wife, she happens to be that she causes that her husband dies. That's a mazel. And the Gemara continues, my beinayu, what's the difference between these two opinions? So, ika beinayu di irsav ames. First of all, there's a difference. Let's say she was just betrothed and the husband died, so there was no act of relations, so you can't attribute it to that. The chazaka wouldn't apply. Inami denafal midiklav ames. So let's say he falls from a tree and he dies. Again, there's no relation over there to the fact that they had relations, and therefore, again, if that was the reason, that wouldn't be part of a chazaka. But if it's just mazel gorim, that could be part of a chazaka. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Rav Yosef, berei de Rava le Rava. Rav Yosef, the son of Rava, said to Rava, Boy minei Rav Yosef. I asked Rav Yosef the following question: Halacha karebi, is the halacha like Rebbe? Meaning after 2 times is there a chazaka? V'amar li in, he said yes, the halacha is like Rebbe. But then I asked him, halacha karebi Shimon ben Gamliel, is the halacha like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel that there's a chazaka after 3 times? V'amar li in, and he also said yes, the halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Achoche achach bi, is he mocking me that he's telling me contradictory psak halacha? And he said back to him, Amar le said to him, Lo, no, stamahi, there are stam mishnayos that go in both directions. Upashalach, he's giving you a good answer. Nisuin umalkios karebi, when it comes to marriage, when it comes to malchus, we follow Rebbe that 2 times is a chazaka. And vestos, v'shor amud, when it comes to vest and shor amud, this will all be explained in the Gemara, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. There we follow Reb Shimon ben Gamliel that after 3 times is a chazaka. And the Gemara now brings the various mishnayos. Nisuin hadiamra, nisuin, we've already mentioned the idea of marriage that we follow chazaka. Malkios, when it comes to Malkus Titnan, we learned in the following Mishnah. Mishaloka Vishana, let's say a person, he got Malkus, he repeated the same exact sin and got Malkus a 2nd time. So Bezdin Konsino so Lakipa, so then Bezdin, they lock him up, Umachilino so Saurim, they feed him barley, Ad should take Kreso Nivkas, until his stomach explodes, meaning the point is, at that point in time, after 2 times, he has a chazaka that he's going to continue to sin, and therefore we put him into a situation where he's for sure going to die, so he does not continue to sin. And the Gemara continues, Vestos, what is Vestos? What Mishnah is that referring to? The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, Ein ha'isha, when it comes to a woman, we do not say, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Hey Amud Aleph.